A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 74th edition of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. It has been our privilege to play host to some wonderful educators, experienced esteemed educators, some thought leaders, dignitaries over the course of the last so many months. With every episode, we have learned something new, and we have kept learning from everybody in this community, especially on how, when we all get together, we make education better. And for that, I have to thank each and every one of you. Your support and love over the last so many months has kept this program going and growing. And we hope to grow like this even in the months to come. We are, this Together for Education platform is perhaps one of the best examples of what we are going to talk about today, peer learning. In the field of education, the esteemed educators who are all here today are peers. And every week, twice, we have managed to learn so many things from each other. However, today we look at how peer learning works in the scope for our students. Before that, a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech platform. We create these short, crisp videos pertaining to topics from the school curriculum. The teachers have access to these videos when they're taking their classes, whether online or offline. They can play these short videos as an introduction to a class and then continue with the discussion about a particular topic. Months later, when the student has to revise the same topic before an exam, they get access to these same videos on their personal devices from home, be it a laptop or a smartphone or whatever device that they have access to, they can watch these videos. These videos serve two purposes. One, they make it easier and more quick to revise a particular topic. And second, they offer a visual memory aid so that the student can remember exactly what the teacher had taught on that particular day when this video was played. What I will do now is play you a small clip of one of these notebook videos before we start today's session.
Packaging and labeling. Madhu ensured that her products should have a proper label. Label is generally a slip which is found on the product or the package, providing all information regarding the product and the producer. Madhu provided proper packaging for her products, which implied designing and developing of the packet, which helped Madhu to protect the product. Also, it acted as a promotional tool. Every producer, seller wants his products should have a special identity in the market. This special identity is known as the brand. Branding. In order to identify the products of Stotra from other products, Madhu used a special name and logo which symbolized her green business brand. Madhu executed the next function of marketing by supporting her customers by providing the best possible service. Customer support service. Customer is the king of market. Therefore, it is important to offer every possible help to the customers. A marketer may offer the following services to the customers: after sales services, technical services, maintenance services. In order to obtain a product, a customer needs to pay certain amount of money, which is known as the price of the product. Pricing of products. The products of Stotra were priced in a cost plus model and a premium was kept to ensure smooth running of the brand. Promotion. Promotion means informing the customers about the products and encouraging them to buy such. There are four principal methods of promotion: advertising, personal selling, sales promotion, publicity. Physical distribution. This function includes decisions regarding channels of distribution or marketing intermediaries. Physical movement of products from the place it is produced to the place where it is required by the customers for their daily needs. Physical distribution including managing inventory, storage, warehousing, and transportation of the respective goods. Transportation. Transportation refers to the physical movement of goods from one place to another. Madhu analyzed the need of transportation after figuring out the nature of her products, cost and location of the target market. She chose road transport as her products were mostly delicate and breakable.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short clip from one of the notebook videos for business studies. More than 10,000 such videos are available on the Notebook app and the website www.notebook.school, where you can use them for your own teaching purposes as well as for your students. Well, with that done, it is now time to move on to our speakers for the day. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. He served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. Sir, privileged to have you here. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Subayu. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and good evening to Achin, to Abhishek, everyone at Notebook, our esteemed panel members, and our guests. So I have, as a teacher, there are many beautiful sites that I have, that I hold very close to my heart. I love beautiful sceneries, sea coasts, mountains. I love to watch great football matches and cricket matches. But by far, the most wonderful sight is when I see children playing in pairs or in groups, and to see how they learn, by being with themselves without actually knowing that they're learning. Now, a peer is defined as somebody who's your equal, your friend, your schoolmate. And peer learning would be defined as students who help, students helping other students. Now, I, for one, have always believed that for every lesson I ever taught, there would be a student or more than one student who knew more about that topic than I did. And I always wondered why these students who knew so much could not be used to help others. Now, the word peer learning, I was just looking it up. It's not a new concept. It goes back to Aristotle, and when he used the word archons, which means teacher-students, student-teachers, and to the letters of Seneca the Younger, where he mentions learning guides. It was later introduced into the French and English schools in the 19th century. And Buddhist monks have always practiced this form of learning in their monasteries for centuries. Peer learning is not a single undifferentiated educational strategy. It encompasses a broad sweep of activities. For example, the first one is the proctoring program, which is used all over in the US colleges, where a senior student tutors children from a lower class. In Harvard, many of the people who give lectures are not actually professors. For the graduates, they use third-year students or people who've done their graduation. The second is surrogate teaching, where one-on-one learning takes place. A bright student or somebody who has shown proficiency in the topic coaches a student who is not very good at that topic. The third is cooperative learning, where a teacher breaks the class up into a number of smaller groups. And these people in these groups talk amongst themselves. They share their individual unique knowledge on the task, and they learn by sharing. The fourth would be reciprocal peer tutoring, where pairs of students get together and one teaches the other what they know about the topic. Other models involve discussion seminars, private study groups, parentage or buddy system or counseling, peer assessment schemes, collaborative projects or library work, projects in different sized groups, workplace mentoring, and community activities. Now, the buddy system is a very common system in schools. I've seen it in many schools. And believe you me that it is amazing to see how much a student can pick up from another student, especially new boys who are given a buddy. Nobody can be a better teacher to a new student than someone who has been 1 year in the school and who's seen it all from that point of view. Now, the term peer learning, however, remains quite abstract. The sense in which we use it here suggests a two-way reciprocal learning activity. Peer learning should be mutually beneficial and involve the sharing of knowledge, ideas, and experience between the participants. It can be described as a way of moving beyond independent to interdependent or mutual learning. Students learn a great deal by explaining their ideas to others and by participating in activities in which they can learn from their peers. They develop skills in organizing and planning learning activities and working collaboratively with others. Also, by giving and receiving feedback and evaluating their own learning. Peer learning is becoming an increasingly important part of many courses as it is being used in a variety of contexts and disciplines in many countries. The potential of peer learning is starting to be realized. But if you look at the ways in which it exists, it is often introduced in a rather ad hoc manner without considering too much of the implications. Now, when such practices are used unsystematically, students unfamiliar with this approach become confused. And they're confused about what they are going to learn or supposed to be doing. And rather than learn, they sometimes don't learn and they fail to develop the skills expected of them. Therefore, much peer learning occurs informally without staff involvement, and students who are already effective learners tend to benefit disproportionately when it is left to chance. It shouldn't be left to chance. I think it should be formalized because formalized learning can help students learn effectively as it offers students the opportunity to learn from each other. Now, I worked in a residential school, which is a 24/7 establishment. And teachers, even given the fact that we have an enviable ratio of 1:10, we can't be everywhere at the same place. And boys, senior boys, are an integral part of the coaching system. It's amazing to see how boys instruct other boys. And it's not only academics. It is the way it's either dance or drama, sport. I've seen boys with a cricket bat spending their free time on a Sunday, maybe, teaching a youngster how to play the straight bat, how and where his feet have to be pointed. It is amazing to see how students coach students. And I don't think the Doon School would have done without this peer mentoring or peer coaching. What it also depends on is that we need to trust that children know more about us, about a topic, than sometimes the teacher does, as I mentioned earlier. And therefore, we as teachers have to shelve our egos and believe that we are the only ones who have the knowledge. Especially today, when children have access to much more information than we do, much more of the theories that they know. Therefore, I think what is needed for peer learning in schools is, first of all, a trust. I think we need to design our classrooms, especially the furniture, very differently, because we need light, flexy furniture to move around. Also, an open and flexible school policy, which allows this. Freedom must be given to teachers to experiment different ways of teaching, or otherwise we'll end up like that scene in Dead Poets Society, lovely movie that I hope, I suppose most of you all have seen, where one creative teacher is denied the freedom to express themselves because of certain authorities, because they saw his methods being subversive to the establishment or the traditional system. Now, I've seen schools which allow students to make their own teaching videos, Allow students to ask questions from other students before asking the teacher. I've seen schools where students facilitate group discussions, explain viewpoints, and discuss ideas. And this is all one step away from peer teaching. What are the benefits of peer teaching? The first thing is personalized learning experience. It's one-to-one, very personalized. You can ask the questions you want, and your peer teacher will tell you exactly what you want. Second is, I think there's a direct interaction between learners, which provide active learning, direct. It's not, you don't have to wait for 1 hour to get what you want. You can get what you want by asking for it. Third, students feel much more comfortable when interacting with someone their age. They share a similar vocabulary, and therefore it is easy for students to communicate with each other. Also, students reinforce their own learning when they teach. They always say, if you want to learn something, start teaching it. And what happens is when you allow students to teach students, teachers can then busy themselves and get busy with planning more important things, more important and serious lessons where they are needed. And as I mentioned earlier, and I reiterate for emphasis, peer learning is very important in these days when students have access to so much research and so much knowledge and so much data. Also, I think that peer learning helps build teams. They build supportive learning networks. It leads to a greater confidence amongst the peer who's teaching, greater psychological well-being, social competence, greater communication skills, higher achievements, and greater productivity. I don't know whether schools have thought of maximizing the benefits of peer online learning during this lockdown, this COVID lockdown, at a time when teachers are really overstressed with this new way of online learning and having to prepare for almost 6 to 7 classes a day. I think we could have thought, schools could have, and I'm sure schools have, thought of how you could use peer learning as an online tool, especially sometimes when schools have lost certain teachers. Some teachers have been laid off and retrenched. This is where peer learning could have benefited the school. Also, let me end by saying that peer learning is not something that you do by walking into class and saying, Ravi, Ashok, get together. It has to be planned. It cannot be something you do when you walk into class. Simply telling students to team up and teach each other will not work. It has to be planned, which the topic, the lesson, the unit, because not all units can be taught the peer way. Some units need the teacher. You have things called buzz groups. A class is divided into smaller groups and given a topic to discuss. And after 20 minutes, a leader is chosen to speak out the group's finding. You have affinity groups, where a group is assigned a task to be worked on outside the formal contact time. And when they meet at the next group session, a representative is asked to report of the group's learning. You also have solutions and critical groups, where a group is assigned a lesson and the others act as critics and question and pick holes and you evaluate the group's teaching. There's also a method called teach, write, discuss. After a topic is taught, a series of short answer questions are set to the class to be answered individually. Then they compare and share their answers within smaller groups. And finally, a whole class discussion occurs, which subsequently examines the array of answers and selects what the team feels most justifiable. And I just would like to end by saying that peer learning is not new. It's been around, it's practiced in many schools. But to be really effective, it has to be planned. It has to be planned into the annual curriculum. Teachers must know of the entire annual syllabus, which topics and when they have to be taught by the peer learning method. Otherwise, it becomes chaotic and you don't achieve much. And thank you for listening to me. I hope it's made some sense. I want to hand this over now to Subayu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. As always, it always helps us to have you introduce the topic so well. Because frankly, when I first came across the topic peer learning, I was reminded of the immense amount of peer learning we backbenchers used to do during the exam. Well, on that lighter note, it is now time to call in our next speaker. Our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. He's a chartered accountant by training and was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Subayu, can you hear me?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which has been around for a long time and is gaining more relevance with each passing day. Let me first begin with a small real-life incident. Now, I'm sure many of us in this forum are very much aware about the kind of good work that has been done by world-famous education scientist Sugata Mitra. So, just to discuss, 18 years ago, he conducted a small experiment in Delhi. There was an underprivileged community in Kalkaji where there are children. We are discussing about almost 2 decades back. In those days, there are many children who had never seen a computer. Internet was also not that popular. So he thought, what will happen if I give them a computer? So in a wall, he made a slot like an ATM machine and fixed a computer in it. He and his team of volunteers. And he left it as it is. So a computer with an internet connection and not being monitored expressly, like nobody's around. It just kept there. In few hours, children were seen surfing the net. Now a lot of bystanders were very curious. And they asked that these children, they do not know English. How are they surfing? The volunteers who were around gave a response, we do not have any idea. It's just kept there and they are playing with it like a toy. After 2 days, children on their own had downloaded and installed a game and were playing. And it is a group of children. They were all trying to help each other out, working together in a group. So the professor was amazed. How was this possible? The same experiment which he conducted in India, Kalkaji, Delhi, he took this to England. There is a city on the banks of Tyne River called Gateshead. At a local school in Gateshead, exactly the same experiment was replicated. Exactly same experiment. Children were given a computer, asked a question and left. So children were left unsupervised. They had a computer and internet connection. Yeah, volunteers were monitoring them, of course, just to see. But though nobody was helping them out, but they were in a group. They were all trying to help each other out. So the series of questions that were given to them, some of them were quite tough questions. Like they did not know the answers. They had to find it. And all those kids, they were working together. Now, eventually over a period of time, it was seen that by working together, they were coming up with the answers. They were on their own, they were working on it, they were searching on the internet, trying to locate the relevant information, discussing among themselves, and trying to come back with an answer. And this was completely unsupervised. It was part of a project. Half of which was done in India and half of it in UK. Exactly same experiment. And same age group of children. Now, based on this, he came up with a concept called Granny's Cloud. Now, what is this Granny's Cloud all about? Granny meaning grandparents' cloud. So the professor advocated that let's try to find out senior citizens who love children, who know the internet, and who have time, spare time, to interact with them, to help them. And there is a lot of good work all over the world in this particular area with a vision of a school in the clouds. With a vision where if a child is asked about volcanoes, nobody will tell them what a volcano is. But given access to information, it is expected that they will find out, discuss among themselves, and after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, come back with the answer. So just the opposite. Now, naturally, peer-to-peer learning can never substitute the need for conventional education. Because even in a peer-to-peer learning, who designs the pedagogy? Who designs the questions based on which the searches happen? The teacher, naturally, right? But yeah, by and large, self-organized. Now, to give you an example of what self-organized education may be, let's step away from education. Imagine a scenario of 500 people leaving a cinema hall after the show on their own. And suppose there are no volunteers to monitor them. At times, there's nobody to tell you, okay, exit is this way. So 500 people leaving a movie theater after the show is over, and there are 2 exits. But we see that people are not pushing each other, they are not jostling for space, right? Automatically a queue gets formed. And if you ask who formed the queue, nobody did, like in particular. So this is termed as spontaneous order, a self-organized system. Now, even though formalized peer-to-peer learning might be a new practice adopted by many modern schools, peer learning has always been a part of learning. It has always been a part of the pedagogy. Now, as Birds also mentioned, that from early times, when students had to leave home for gurukuls, peer-to-peer learning was present in the society because the need for community learning and reciprocal learning was always recognized. Now, the need for peer-to-peer learning is not difficult to understand because a person learns very little in a solitary environment and has a faster pace of learning when supported by and encouraged by other students like him. And naturally, interactions with other human beings is at the core of learning, right? Thus, promoting an environment of peer-to-peer learning in a school undoubtedly ensures that this kind of interaction the students have with each other, they are productive and they contribute in a great way to the process of learning. Things like sharing of ideas, things like sharing of knowledge between 2 friends. An example of this is a group study where peers could be discussing the concepts of a lesson and then addressing each other's doubts. Even studying together in a library, in a classroom can be an example of peer-to-peer learning, where one friend is trying to correct the misconceptions of the other. Now, whether it's a peer learning, suppose whether it's a peer helping the other peer understand the concepts better, or a friend helping the other remember important points of topic. We always practically see abundance of peer-to-peer learning, whether structured or unstructured, both inside and outside the school. And we practically we always see it, right? Now, formalized peer-to-peer learning activities like group studies, group projects, very important, seminars, and other methods of collaborative learning. In fact, peer tutoring is also a way of schools involving peer-to-peer learning in the education system. While teachers can teach the concepts in class, peers can help academically weaker students by teaching them, by discussing with them particular subjects. And in a formalized peer-to-peer learning, peer tutors are rewarded. I was reading a lot about this, around the world. Peer tutors being rewarded. And the process definitely is mutually beneficial, because we all know that when we teach something, to another human being, definitely our own concepts also, there's much more clarity to it. And it also encourages formation of strong partnerships and friendships. There's no doubt about it. And also, I guess, children in same age group, they communicate with each other in a language which definitely they understand much better. So I look at it as a complementary teaching method, where the foundation of the concepts definitely are laid by teachers. But at times, peer involvement definitely helps. Now, there are a few other ways in which we look at it, right? Like in today's age, as we all understand, considering the kind of work environment that we are trying to prepare our students for, working in teams, trying to collaborate with each other, working in multidisciplinary teams, working with colleagues from different ethnicities, activities like peer learning definitely helps in terms of improving communication skills, in terms of expressing oneself, in terms of, because they definitely prepare a student for future workspaces to collaborate. Last day, I remember, just after the budget, in fact, I was in a budget session with Founders India TV, and there was a full session on education, and there was a question that came up, very interesting question, with regard to the importance of soft skills. The importance of soft skills and where exactly our students are lagging behind, and what is the role of academia in this regard. Role of professors, role of universities, role of academia, how can they actually help in terms of soft skills? So one thing that came up and which I mentioned and which I wanted to share with all of you, I think pedagogy or the way the entire learning mechanism is structured has got to do a lot with the kind of confidence that we want our students to have. If we really want someone to be confident, if we really want someone to hold his or her own ground tomorrow, whether it be in a meeting, in an interview, in a group discussion, now, where does a student gain this confidence from? Definitely activities like this makes a world of difference. So I guess in this regard also, peer-to-peer learning is definitely very important. Now, I was reading about some very interesting developments with regard to peer-to-peer learning. So two case studies I wanted to discuss with all of you. One in US and the other in Bhutan, closer home. So in US, I saw that an educational model called Escuela Nueva, commonly referred to as EN. So this was designed half century ago. And this basically was designed for rural schools in Colombia. But now this program is being used in more than 19 countries, starting from Mexico to Vietnam. So it's being used across 19 countries. And the objective is to bring virtual education to life. So how does this work? How does EN as a model work? And this entire model of EN is based on the concept of peer learning. They're actually practically doing it. And how is it different? So students, they cluster in small groups. Small groups are built, small clusters. And each child has their own learning guide, complete with detailed instructions, so that they can work on their own as well as with classmates. Now, the teacher introduces the assignment. Naturally, the teacher introduces the assignment. And after that introduction, students try to tackle it individually. They review each other's work. If one of them is having a hard time, the others pitch in to help. The teacher moves from one group to the other group. Now we are discussing about rural communities, and we were discussing about a method that has been in existence for more than 5 decades, right? So naturally, a teacher moves from one group to the other and discusses with students. And when a particular group, they complete the project, and projects are given to students as a group, not to students individually. Now, even I read about teachers training, formal teachers training, 3 weeks teachers training being done exactly based on this concept. So it's a very hands-on learning by doing model that puts cooperative, personalized, active learning over memorization and passive learning. And it really empowers children as a part of self-governing community. So this is one thing that I read. And I also read about how, especially during last few months, how virtually they're trying to tweak the model so as to ensure that this even works virtually in a remote way. Another important experiment, very interesting experiment I read in Bhutan. Now, there's a study that was undertaken in Bhutan, and the objective of the study was to find out whether peer learning, how does it work as a pedagogy? So they were looking at various alternative pedagogies, and peer learning was considered as a case study. Now, this particular study involved classroom observation of teaching and learning processes and focus group interviews. 11 secondary schools in Bhutan were included as a part of the sample. And these schools were spread across 4 states, Zonkas as they call it. 22 teachers and 88 students were engaged in the study. One of the main findings for this study is that, this is really interesting. The study really finds out that the kind of comfort that students have with each other, peer-to-peer comfort, is very high. Hence, learning works. Another finding is that peer teaching is a dominant practice as compared to reciprocal peer learning. So a lot of work is being done, especially a lot of good recommendations have come out from this. For example, including peer learning method with its multifaceted approach as one of the teaching and learning approaches in teachers training program, implementing peer learning through remedial class and especially in boarding schools, and also building more comfort in this particular regard to make it more formal and so as to ensure that it's more structured. So I guess these are some points that I wanted to discuss. I really thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We have a great panel today, a very eminent panel with lots of experience. And in this very interesting topic, I really look forward to hear from them, especially with regard to their experience, case studies, etc. Thank you. Over to you, Shubham.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And as Achin mentioned, we do indeed have a very eminent panel with us today. I'll just take a couple of minutes to introduce them to you one by one before we start the discussion. We have with us Mrs. Sandhya Venkatesh, who is the principal of the Mount Clitera Z School in Vasco, Goa. She has more than 25 years of experience as principal with reputed English medium schools and education providers in India, and nearly 32 years of teaching experience. She has been awarded the Best District Principal Award by Science Olympiad Foundation 2013-14 and 16-17. She has worked as the Center Superintendent for NEET examination in 2017 and was also awarded the Best District Principal by the Science Olympiad Foundation again in 2017-18. She was felicitated by Lions Club of Dublin for her service in the field of education. She was awarded Emerging Leader Award at Leadership Excellence Awards in Dubai in 2018, the Devang Mehta National Education Leadership Award 2018, and she handled the CBSE inspection for upgradation to senior secondary for Takshila School Ahmednagar and Mount Literazi School Goa. She received the ISA award from British Council for her school and was appointed as my apologies, was appointed as subject expert by CBSE for history for March 2020. She was awarded for being the most dynamic principal by Golden Ames Award in 2020, the Best District Principal Award by Science Olympiad Foundation again in 2019-20. She is an active member of the Sahodaya Schools Complex of Goa and a member of AGGRUSA Unaided Schools Association. She is also the secretary of the Rotary Club of Vasco for the year 2020 and 2021. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here today. Privileged to have you here.
Thanks,
We have with us
thanks, Subhai.
our pleasure, ma'am. We have with us Mrs. Tapasri Pramanik, who holds an MA in History and English and an MEd. She joined as a social science teacher at Siddharth Public School in Ranchi in 1992. From then on, she went on to work at the Leela Janki Public School, Bokaro as principal from 1996 to 2010. And she's currently serving in Radha Govind Senior Secondary Public School, Ramgarh, for the last 11 years in the post of principal. She has received the Avantika Rashtriya Shikshak Samman 2016, the Certificate of Appreciation from Global Science Olympiad as organized by Indian Environment Society and technical support of UNESCO, the Avantika Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam National Award 2016, Mahatma Gandhi Rashtrabhasha Hindi Prachar Sansthan, appreciated for Adarsh Pracharya Puraskar, her Certificate of Appreciation by Ministry of HRD, Certificate of Felicitation by Indian Art promoting Rangotsav celebration. She's been working for the welfare of underprivileged kids in her localities, and for the last 5 years, she has been appointed as CTET observer by CBSE. She also holds the post of the treasurer in the Sahodaya School Complex of Ramgarh. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us today. Absolute privilege to have you here. We also have with us Mr. Shrikant Rath, who's the principal of the Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya in Phulbani, District Kanmahal, Odisha. He holds an MSc in physics and a BA. He started his career as a lecturer in physics at Ramaji Mahavidyalaya in Bhishmagiri, Ganjam of Odisha State in 1988 and worked there up to 1991 when he got selected as PGT Physics in Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, Koraput. After continuing as PGT Physics, he got certificates of merit and recognition for a period and got promoted to the post of vice principal and joined with seniority in the year 2006. He worked in the capacity of principal in charge at various Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas of Madhya Pradesh and Odisha state. On getting selection, he joined as principal at Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya Phulbani in Odisha in the year 2019 and still continues there. Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas, by the way, are co-education and fully residential schools and are funded by the Ministry of Education. Sir, thank you so much for being part of this panel today. Absolute privilege having you here.
Thanks to everybody. Thanks.
I will stop my share now, switch on my camera so that we can start the discussion. Again, a big thank you to all of you for being part of this discussion today. I will first go around the table, get your initial thoughts about the topic today, peer learning, and then I will have some more specific questions for you. Sandhya ma'am, if you may start with you.
Good evening to everyone present for today's session. Peer learning is not a very new concept. It is very old concept. Already Mr. Philip and Achin have told us about it, and a lot of study has been done in this field. We as teacher and member of teaching faculty, we have been using peer learning in our teaching learning process. The most used part of peer learning is think, pair and share, which we use as our active learning strategy, where we pair the children, where they think, they share, and they come out with the ideas. We follow random grouping in the class when we are teaching them. We group them for better discussion, for better learning. Then we have another innovative thing, that is circle the sage, the person who knows. We divide them, and the one who knows the thing, explains it better. They get to know the concept better. So this is not something very new, though the pandemic punished us for a year where we were away from the children. I will call it as punishment because teachers without students don't have life. And online teaching doesn't make you lively because they are far away from you. We teachers always want children near us because that is where we can teach them. And it is not only teaching, it is facilitating nowadays. You facilitate learning. And with peer learning, you are the one who are going to make children understand how to move ahead. So when you talk about active learning strategies, peer learning is a main form of active learning strategies for our teachers who use this in their day-to-day learning. And you are teaching children how to understand how they are going to learn about it. And we as facilitators, we need to understand how we are going to have impact on the students. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. If I may come to Tapsi ma'am next. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Good evening, one and all present in this today's session. And I really tell you the peer learning is very near to my heart. Actually, you know, the peer learning, which I have really learned it right from my childhood. I remember those days when in the summer holidays, when we used to go to our native town, and there in the summertime, you know, in the noon, we were told to do 1-page handwriting. And any one of them were having, any of my cousins were having any bad handwriting, it would become our duty to ratify them, check them, and then learn it in return of it. And what I do find, peer learning or peer instruction, as my Sandhya madam has told, Bharat sir has told, Achin has also told, it is in time immemorial, right from the ancient time, this method is being opted in the reading learning skill so far as education is concerned. And it is a collaborate learning that involves students working in pair in a small group to discuss any concept or find solution to any sort of problem, where at times they solve it by themselves or they take the help of the teacher or the seniors who are along with them. Peer learning is often implemented in school to provide a friendly environment for students to learn and promote personalized learning. It has been proved to be one of the most effective teaching method and tool which is implemented almost, I think, so in all the schools. And I can find that, you know, teachers, you know, they implement this peer learning in their classroom. And why it is being done so, that students receive more time for individualized learning. Direct interactions between students promote active learning. Students feel they are very comfortable and open when interacting with their own peers. Peer learning promotes not only understanding, but a healthy assimilation of thought, deeds, action among the children. Teachers receive this, you know, they get a time, and you know, through this peer learning, and why they do it, because they get a time so that they can focus in their next lesson. And one thing what we see it, choosing the lesson to be taught for a day, particularly in the revision time, the teachers can understand that who has learned the subject matter in a proper way or who are still lagging behind. So the teacher, with the keen observant of the class, what she does or he does, the teacher does, is she demarks the students who are the active learner, who are the slow learner, who are the passive learner, and as per it, the group is made, and an active learner is put in between, made the child to make him understand that today you are a teacher for these all your fellow friends. And it has been found out that what the teacher could not do, the child of the same class could do it. It takes a time, it takes patience of everybody, but above all, everybody learns to it. And, the teacher then asks, how much did you understand? And in this way, the teacher can find that the class could understand the subject matter in a more proper way, in a healthy way, and in an understandable way. And all the difficulties, what has been found out during that time is sorted out, solved in a very appropriate manner. And there will be student who raises their hand in both the question. They understood, they did not understand. It also happens. Okay. And another thing, what do we find? That the student gets to revise and learn the concept together in a healthy manner. And what do I find it? That to allow a peer instruction, it does not deviate anybody's attention. All the attentions are ingrained in that session, and the children, they enjoy a lot. When we tell a child that today you are the teacher of the group, they feel that some authority has been given, and they act in that way. And in that childish manner, in the childish forum, the child makes to understand the subject matter more clearly, and the slow learner, they easily understand in a more better way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Rath, sir, if we may come to you next, your initial thoughts about peer learning. Sir, you're on mute.
Good evening to everybody. First of all, I will thank the notebook team for giving me an opportunity to again participate as a panelist in this webinar. And it is also an opportunity for me to get interaction with the other principals who are the eminent educationists also. And we will discuss also regarding this matter, peer learning. It is a general phenomena, and we have already discussed it regarding peer learning. I want to cite my personal case when I was the student of high school. I think it will be better because many more areas has been covered by the other panelist members. When I was the student of high school, I was a student of state government high school, which was not of CBSE pattern. So generally at that time also, when children they got doubts, they used to go to go for tuition, because at that time that coaching practice was not there. So I myself used to read my lessons, and I prepare myself. And sometimes my friends, classmates, they come to me and we sit together and we really discuss among ourselves, and we got our doubts clarified. And I used to take help from one of my classmates who was going to attend one tuition with one of our teachers, and I collect the details of instructions that he was getting from the teacher, and that I was collecting, and I was preparing myself. So at the same time, I was helping others also, just like a peer group. This peer group learning is actually is a very good and effective learning. I feel myself proud also to be a part of Navodaya Vidyalaya system. Already it has been told that it is coming under Ministry of Education at present, Government of India. In our school system, generally students go for classes in the first half. In afternoon period, they go for remediation. And in the evening hours, they go for supervised study. The meaning of supervised study, all the children of a particular class, they will come to the class, and they will be under supervision of a particular teacher. They will be given chance to discuss among themselves the topics that was dealt during the class hours, and they are free to discuss among themselves the topics of their choice. Full freedom is given to them. So because of that one, the children, they share and care themselves in respect to the subjects, and wherever still doubt exists, they clarify in remedial classes and also in normal classes by taking the help of teachers. So that is the best example I can say that is in real practice in Navodaya Vidyalaya system, and that is a peer education. Students, when they reside in the hostels, because it is a fully residential school under Ministry of Education, Government of India, so children, they stay in the dormitories or houses. There also teachers, they supervise sometimes, and children, they share and care, and they improve themselves. And because of such type of effort, the children, they excel in CBSE examinations and bring name and fame for this organization. So it is a very good pattern of learning. And similarly, in relations to effectiveness, children, they are given assignments. So when the assignment is given to them, then the students, they clear it, they cover it, they go through the different reference books, and they take the help of their classmates help, and they complete these assignments, activities, projects. And in relations to co-curricular activities that is going on in Navodaya Vidyalayas, the children, they participate in different co-curricular activities. Let us say elocution or debates. Say a particular topic is given to them, then they prepare themselves and they present in general. So this is a self-motivated learning and also coming under peer learning. So similar many more instances are there. And nowadays, if I will say online classes, really it is a very interesting one, I will say, because this present webinar that we are attending, it is a self-motivated. And because of our self-interest, we are attending and we are getting, we are sharing and we are learning also. At the same time, that MOOC courses, mass open online courses are also there. That is the initiative of Government of India. So there we can get many more teaching learning material. Similarly, e-learning sources are also there. That is Disha channel and e-Vidya and e-Pathshala. There are so many other channels are there. So these channels, the students, they get self-motivated and also they prepare themselves. I think this is also a good effort that pandemic has made us to learn and to make ourselves own self-sufficient in education system also. So this is also one of the things. These are the ideas what I felt to share at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that. So what I will do now is I have just a couple of questions for the panelists here. Before I come on to the questions, I just have an announcement to make for the benefit of everybody who's attending this. As you are aware, this is the 74th episode, and so the next one, which is on Saturday, is our 75th episode. We have some VIP guests who will be joining us who are not from the education system. They happen to be from the world of Bollywood and other various walks of life, but they wanted to join us in thanking all the teachers who have been part of this panel. So I would like to invite everybody here to please be part of the session on Saturday, which is our 75th episode, right? Now that out of the way, my first question is, uh, I'll take an example from my own student days, right? Back when I was a school student, peer learning was, as I said, still what we were doing illegally during the exams. It became far more legal in our postgraduate studies when I was doing my MBA. And there we had something called FAST groups, right? Faculty aided study groups. And I just wanted to know what, according to you, are those qualities or are those things that the teacher can do to facilitate peer learning, right? Sandhya ma'am, if I may come to you first. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
As teachers, we need to make a focus on how we enable peer learning. For us, it is very important to understand how we make groups, because peer learning is there to stay. And with pandemic, we have learned that online education may continue for some more time. So we as a teachers need to focus on how we are going to create those groups and how we are going to aid peer learning. So for me, suppose I am a history teacher. So if I'm taking a topic, I need to divide the class into such a group or make groups of children where one person will help the other to understand. So if I'm talking about French Revolution, I need to give my children the topic, cut it into small pieces, divide it into each group where they come together, discuss. The one who understands explains it to the other, tries to understand whether whatever was explained is understood by the other child. So we have to focus on how we create these groups. And all of us agree, though it is online education, there are few children in the class who would come what may not like to be part of any group because they think they know everything. So you have to put with them such type of children whom they will take together and try to help them. You see, we cannot leave any child. We have to see to it that whatever we are doing helps other children too. And when I'm talking about peer learning, as a teacher, we have to use multiple strategies where we make children understand empathy. We make them understand the feeling of other child. It should not be that I know, but the other one doesn't know. It is always I know something, the other one also knows something. So let us get together and create a story. So very important that we work together hand in hand. Teachers planning is topmost priority right now so that we can help children.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Rath, sir, if I may come to you next. What do you think would be the most effective way for a teacher to enable peer learning?
We generally discuss the topics in the class. That is, the teacher is going on giving information and the student becomes a listener. We can say a passive listener. So generally, to make it more interactive, we allow the children to ask questions and to make it as a participative learning. And the children are asked to clarify their doubts. And we also tell the children to put questions. That means we ask questions in order to get feedback. So they give the answers. So some children are there actually in the general class system. They do not come forward to participate during class situation. So being the teachers, it is our duty also to trace such children and give more attention to such children and to ask questions and to bring them to a participative mode so that the teaching learning will be more effective. And we can give assignments, just like topics are, a particular topic is given. The children nowadays online is there, all subject and the topic and content wise, everything is available in the YouTube and other different e-learning sources. So we can give a topic to the children, and then the children can form groups and they can discuss that one in a better manner. They clarify themselves, and we will allow them to discuss in the class, to present in the class. So if a child is presenting the topic in the class, then the other children will be get self-motivated and they got stimulated, and they feel it better, because one of our student classmate has presented the topic in a befitting manner and in a better manner, they can say. So they can get also self-motivated and they can come forward and they can go for preparation. So we have to involve the children by giving some assignments, projects, activities, and we have to tell them to participate in co-curricular activities. So they will come forward. And during this process, we have to concentrate only the students, those who are not coming in a participative mode. So then every student will achieve the success and the desired goal of teaching learning will be achieved.
Wonderful, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Tabashma, if I may come to you next. You'll have to unmute yourself first, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, what makes a peer learning functionable or workable, simply putting students in a group and telling them to work together does not mean that they know the work completely. And, for every work, cooperation is needed. And working in a cooperative is much more beneficial so far as peer learning is concerned. What I could find that student in a class of 40, there are many types of student. Some may be very intelligent, but little bossiness is there. Some may be knowing the subject matter, but they are very, very passive listeners, rather we can say, and they do not come out of their shell. We have to pull them. How can it be possible? And there are some middle people, like, they have the knowledge, they lack of knowledge, they are a bit mischievous. So a bunch of everybody, the group should be made in such a way that the slow learners can get involved to it. And they get the energy, I will say something to them. And in this cooperative inductive method, the peer education plays a very pivotal role. And what I could find, there are 5 elements to it. Now, positive interdependence, now face-to-face promotive interactions, and individuals are accountable to it. Social skill is needed, and the group processing that play a very, very important role. Now, in this, what I could find that the teacher's role is very, very active. The teacher must be very, very active. She should take, or he should take, a very initiative role in bringing all the students to come in the forum. And it is found out that, as I have told, that I am a social science teacher and my background is history also. So whenever I go for, if I take the example of Sandhya Madam, only French Revolution, I'm giving a one small short example what had happened with me. Like the child, every children were sitting, some were very active, some were very inactive, some were very passive listener. So what did I do? That I pulled out a child who was a passive listener sitting right in the corner. He does not want to say anything. And as he came to know that I'm going to tell him that you have to say some few words, so he stood up and his shirts were out. Then I told, how does he look like? Then all the children, they told that, ma'am, he belongs to the pigeon community of the French Revolution when we cite the story. Then I told, okay, now you tell something about the pigeon tree. And I was very surprised. Both, he has used a bilingual in the classroom, but I was very surprised that a child who never utters a single word, on that day, he told everything what I've never thought about it. Then I gave a round of applause. I told the children that give him a big clap, that he opened his mouth, and all of the thing what he has uttered in the classroom were very, very true in the sense. He told in his own language. I appreciated that. And this episode had taken place 2 years back. And now I could find the child that he readily comes and tell, madam, I will be the speaker of the day. If any program is conducted in the school, whether it's an inter-house competition or any sort of like that, he will be that, madam, I will be telling, I will be delivering. You just guide me. I think so. This peer learning concept enabled a child to be more having a self-respect to himself. He got self-confidence, and that confidence level made him not only a good listener, but also a good orator. And above all, what I could find, that he takes participation in all the inter-house and inter-school competition. I cheer my student that this peer learning has made a child a well-established person. Thank you.
Wonderful, ma'am. Wonderful story from your classroom. Going back to, again, my own studenthood, which is where I pick up most of my examples from, because I clearly lack the kind of immense classroom experience you have. Back in my school days, if I had to tell my parents that I'm going out for, group studies, what we used to call it back then, during the class 11 and 12, they were absolutely 100% confident that I am going there to spend time with my friends and no studying will happen in the process. I can tell you that they were at least 25% wrong. But that aside, today parents are really concerned about the safety of the child when the child is stepping out of the home, right? We've just been through a pandemic and we are beginning to open up. Do you think with the parents also becoming more concerned about who their children are mixing with, spending time with, peer learning can continue like it was even outside the classrooms? Mr. Rath, if I may start with you, because you run a residential school, so you are the de facto parent of a lot of students.
Many times. Peer learning, it should continue, but controlling by the parents and teachers is highly essential. I remember in our system, when a computer is given to a child during class situations, the teacher is going on teaching, for example, he is unable to see what actually the child is doing in the with the computers. So in that case, when such a ICT based teaching is there, or use of mobile is there, or online mode of education is there, in that case, only the channel required for the child to improve subjects only to be given, and other areas need to be restricted. So that can be done through our wave system at the Vidyalaya level or in the parent level. We have to see to it. It is really a concern for everybody. I was talking with one of the parents. I asked one question. So your mobile, your child is holding, and the child is busy in attending online classes or going through some subject contents. What you are doing at that time when the child, sir, during that time, I am sitting along with the child. She was sitting along with the child, and even though I do not see directly, but I observe indirectly. That is a very good way. If the children will be kept under strict control, then the children will find out some alternative modes and the time to utilize in other manners. The children should be made very friendly. They should be guided in a very proper manner so that they can use only the computer or the internet only for the subject content only. So that fear is there, exists with all the parents. It's correct, because this internet, whenever we are using some, just now when I was in the webinar, one advertisement has come. So like that way, many things are coming. The child may get diverted from his own actions and may divert to other areas. So that is a need. The concern of parents is a concern of myself also being a parent. So definitely it will be a concern of everybody. So in that case, only the related topics should be allowed to go through, and strict vigil of the teacher should be there during these transaction hours. And especially in the houses, whenever the child is there and using freely mobiles or net or for study purposes, some vigil should be kept by the parents, some timing. And what the child is doing, whether he is originally engaged for the studies, note preparation is going on, some conversation is going on, that is also to be taken care of. It is the need of our also. So thank you, sir.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. Tapasri ma'am, if we may come to you next. The role of parents in yes, Tapasri ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah, the role of parents in peer learning. Ma'am, you'll have to unmute yourself once again.
Sorry. What I could say you that the role of parents during this pandemic time is immense. Rather, I would say that now their work schedule of the parents have gone 4 times more what they were doing previously. First of all, you know, the network system or the technology part when I'm talking about, it has gone to a very diversified way. If you open the net, you can go through immense apps as per the choice of and the taste of a child. Now the parents have to know which is the app which is very needful to them, how useful to them, and in which way they should execute. And too much of restriction is also not healthy, because parents have to trust their children or child. And another thing which is very important is that control freedom, I do think, is very needed. You have to trust your child. You have to be vigilant to the child, and whatever they are executing, taking the help of the technology, they have to keep or supervise that. Eye contact must be there, because we know that this children, you know, of nowadays, they have diverse and diversified taste. They are showing that to their parents that they are learning something, but you will see that actually they were not learning. They were in the other mode, chatting with their friends. Okay, I don't disagree that chatting with a friend is a crime, but you should know that what language they use, what was the topic of chatting, whether the chatting is of not of the textbook also, if that is of any other, if it is of a film also, but the relevant part. If you see them, they are chatting, discussing and all, you know, it gives them a wide range of knowledge. I don't go for the total, bookish knowledge. If it is of anything they have seen, any video they have visualized of any country or of any province, when they discuss, I appreciate my children, because that skill, that art, the articulate in which way they present in the latter course of their study, I could find them that they do very well than the children who are completely rote learning or they are completely bookish learning. The parents, if I talk about here, that they have to keep an eye. There is no other way out, because the children which we teach, they are all teenagers. And they have more taste. They want to grow much bigger than what is their age. So keeping them to control themselves, one supervision is needed. And the parents have to take pain. There is no other option. They have to take pain. They have to guide them. And I really tell that the children, who are in the tender age, particularly in the primary section, parents have to take out time, and that becomes at time it becomes a Hercules task for the parents. How would I overcome this? I could see the parents telling, ma'am, when the school is going to open, it is too much for us. How come very easily that the tiffin is completed in your class, but why not at home? They tell us, when we have a discussion, I could find that the parents, now they are really fed up, they are waiting when the school is going to reopen. The pandemic has really played a very good role, I would tell. If the child has felt that, particularly if I am talking about the children who are in the dent of class 10 and class 12, I could find them that when they are speaking with and they have interaction with their students, taking the aid of their teachers, I could find them, they are doing wonderful in their academic. Even in the examination, the half-yearly result has come out, we could find that those children have done wonderfully well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sandhya ma'am, for paucity of time, I'm going to come to you with the last question that I have. There's this beautiful product called edX that is managed by Mr. Anand Agarwal. It's a collaboration between MIT and Harvard. And the idea is this, that if the student goes onto that platform, this is for postgraduate students, they can post any query. And other students from around the world will be able to see that question and respond to that with their answers. With the advent of technology and the way we have adopted technology as part of education during this pandemic, do you see technology changing the way peer learning happens now? You'll have to unmute yourself now.
Yeah. I agree with you. Technology has taught us many things. Let me tell you one incident when lockdown was declared in March and we were all locked inside the house. And suddenly I realized, what about 10th and 12th? Because being principals, we are more bothered about 10th and 12th. What will we do? How will we finish with their syllabus? And then we started searching for online platform. How do we conduct? So I got to know about Google Meet, then Team, then Cisco, and lot of things. But I was not able to handle those. Zoom, I was somehow able to handle. I got myself trained. I trained my teachers. But to my surprise, within a week of our conducting classes, the children were well versed about Zoom, which we as teachers were not able to. Then we understood that these children are better learners than what we are. This young generation, if given this platform and given the right direction, they will achieve greater heights. Online tools are going to remain, and this is for us as teachers to train ourselves so that we train the children. Now, one more thing I would like to share. I know we are short of time, but the smaller ones, they see the elders and they follow them. Now, if you have two kids at home, one is in senior class, and senior class means 7th, 8th, and the younger one is in 3rd or 4th, the senior one, if he is misusing the online platform, the younger one is going to misuse it. So here again, a great deal of responsibility falls on the parent who has to educate the children. both the children that this is what is required, what is important, and how they have to utilize their time. And with online education, we as educators, we have to keep talking to children so that they don't lose focus. And today also we are not sure whether in April the entire school will be in school, or it will be June, or it will be August. Still we are not sure. Though there is vaccination, though there are saying that Indians are immune, their immunity level is very good, but as parent you cannot remove a parent's fear. They don't want the kids to go out because they are scared. So we as teachers have to plan it out properly and see to it how we are going to use this online tool and how we are going to enable our children for peer learning. We cannot say that they are not in school, so no peer learning. No, all of us have to agree and understand one thing. Anywhere on the planet, the child needs a peer to learn. So we have to enable it. We have to teach them how to move forward. Thanks, Subayu.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Tapsi ma'am, Shrikanta sir, thank you so much for your time.
I want to
think this
add something.
Surely, sir, please.
Really, I want to add in relation to this one. Now, in higher education level, mostly online courses started. So similarly, if you go to the national education policy also, it has been clearly told that in degree level, if it is a 4 years course, the child can appear first year, thereafter he can stop for some time. After some time, he can come back and join the second year course, and like that is there. So only this is a self interested, and this is a learning by himself only, by the peers. So time has come. We cannot leave this present teaching learning process, formal learning. However, this use of our technology also cannot be avoided at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Again, thanks to all three of you for the time that you've given us.
Thank
I
you.
know Achin will come back. Thank you so much, ma'am. I
Thank
know
you.
Achin will come back for the formal vote of thanks. Before I hand this back to Achin, let me remind all of you that the next episode is our 75th episode. We do have a special program planned, and it would be our absolute privilege to have all of you back on the platform that day. Achin, over to you for the vote of thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Shubha. I think really great session we had. But sir, as always, you really give us a flying start, and some very good examples you quoted, including the fact that how senior students in Doon, they actually help not only in terms of teaching juniors, but also in terms of extracurriculars and in terms of all other activities. That really captures the essence and the spirit. I think thank you for bringing that. We really had a great panel today, and some very good inputs have come, undoubtedly. Tapasi ma'am, I think I thank you for highlighting the entire concept of group formation and the 5 elements. And I completely agree with you on that. That is really important, be the dependence, interaction, accountability. Teacher's role, as you rightly mentioned, ma'am, is very critical, and we couldn't agree more. We completely agree with you on this. Teacher's role indeed is very, very critical, and a very active and enthusiastic participation is needed on the part of teachers. Also, the example that you quoted with regard to a particular child who normally was silent in your class, but when given an opportunity, he spoke up in his own way, and eventually did a world of good to his confidence. The fact that he is far more active and volunteering himself for various activities, etc. In fact, I guess that is something, because I always believe that when a child fails, the entire system fails. When I say fail, I don't mean academically a child fails. I mean, if we are not being able to engage a child, if we are not being able to make a child an active participant, not only in terms of lessons, but in terms of all extracurriculars, so the entire system fails. So activities like this, the kind of initiatives that you spoke of, are really commendable. I must appreciate, and does a world of good to the child's confidence. Shrikant sir, again, A very important point you highlighted, sir, with regard to parent supervision. So in fact, this is one point that all our esteemed panelists have spoken about. But I think you highlighted this in great details, and I completely agree with you on that. That parent supervision indeed is important, undoubtedly, especially in today's time when we are seeing children studying from home, etc. The kind of access that nowadays children have with regard to unlimited access, I'll say, with regard to various types of content that is available in public domain, undoubtedly, parental or teacher supervision and access is really, is really very, very important. Another very important point, I guess, you highlighted, the fact that peer learning is here to continue, the fact that it's only going to increase from here, and some examples with regard to recent examples with regard to national education policy, etc., that you gave, the fact that yes, revolutionary changes are coming, and I guess these changes are completely, they are keeping pace with time, so an idea whose time has really come. That's the way I'll put it. Sandhya ma'am, again, great points. Especially, I completely agree with you when you said that technology, per se, I think you completely put it very rightly. The fact that how quickly children adapted to the entire technological change, that I guess is universally true. All schools, we interact with so many schools, so many esteemed educators, and we speak to all of them. One common feedback is that yes, although teachers also have done a phenomenal job in terms of stepping up to the challenge, in terms of taking this head on, and ensuring that children do not lose a precious year, which I guess is commendable, undoubtedly. And having said that, the fact that children at a very fast pace, they adapt to technology is something that all of us are completely aware of. And I think very relevant observation. And naturally, technology adoption is only going to increase with time. So some great points we had, and very nice takeaways for our esteemed educators and for our esteemed audience today. I thank all of you for your time. I also thank members of the audience for their time and encouragement and support, which has really helped us to take Together for Education webinar to the next level. As Shubhayu mentioned, next episode that we have on Saturday is our 75th episode. I cordially invite all of you to be there with us, and we look forward to your presence, continued presence. Thank you. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shubhayu. It was wonderful. Thank you, Achin. It was really a pleasant to have you all and be a part of your webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks to the team members.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
to the team members.
Sir.
And thank you,
Our pleasure.
Sandhya madam and Rat sir. It was wonderful meeting you people.
Same to you, madam. Many thanks to you all, both. And to all the team members.
And let me share with you, Rat sir, I am from Odisha, Sambalpur.